Kagurabachi's Saté War is one of the most important events in the entire story and the crux of the narrative. It's why the Hishaku exist, it's why Kunishige went into hiding and was killed, it's why our protagonist Chihiro isn't a regular boy. Without the Saté War, sorcerers would still be in the shadows, the Kaminabi would still be the counter-sorcery army, and most importantly, the enchanted blades would never have been born. As we all know, these weapons were the only reason Japan even had a chance at winning the Saté War. As we learned during the Rakuzaichi arc and the Ayori flashback in the Swordbearer's assassination arc, the tide shifter of the war that led to the enemy island losing was the Shinuchi, the ultimate masterpiece of Kunishige Rokuhira. This disastrous blade unleashed death in unforeseen numbers and painted the entire island red. This is the truth of Rokuhira's legacy, covered in shadows and propaganda by the Kaminabi. However, in the time between the end of the Saté War and his death, Kunishige Rokuhira created one final enchanted blade, one which he would give his life to protect. It was a blade created with the capability to rewrite his legacy and wash his slate clean, a tool for his son to right the wrongs of the sins of his father. In this blade, which you are all familiar with, is known as Enten. In this video, I want to take a closer look at both Enten and Magatsumi, as I believe these two blades and their unique relationship will take center stage as the focal point of Kagurabachi's story going forward. I see these two blades as opposites, with shockingly paralleled origins and theming. In fact, I'm of the opinion that Enten's full potential will dwarf the other blades, and it is the true masterpiece of Kunishige. Especially so following the revelations of Chapter 83. So without further ado, let's start with a look at not Enten, not Magatsumi, but the process of making an enchanted blade. The process of creating an enchanted blade requires even more care than creating a regular katana due to the dangerous nature of their source material, datenseki, or datensky. Datensky is a material which amplifies spirit energy massively to the point that it cannot be contained within the human body anymore. This results in manifestations, typically in the form of an animal. However, Datensky in its natural form is raw and unstable, and unless you hail from the island it's native to, it is impossible to survive exposure to it. The spirit energy would just keep multiplying until you explode. Kunishige Rokuhira's observational skill as a blacksmith allowed him to see these impurities in the metal when forging, which is what led to proper stabilization of the material in the form of the 7 katana we've seen and heard of within the story. When taking a look at the kanji for Datensky, we have 3 present. The first kanji, for Da, means cloud, and in Japanese mythology, clouds tend to represent the bridge between heavens and the earth. The second kanji, for Ten, means heaven or divinity. The sky, if we want to go with Da for cloud, and the mythological context, is representative of the dwelling place of the gods. And the final kanji for Seki simply translates to stone, but in the context of mythology, stones represent stability, a connection to the spiritual realm, being stable. So, when we put it together, we have the clouds, the bridge between heaven and earth, the sky, heaven, and the stone, which while Datensky itself is literally a stone, means a stable spiritual connection, which would mean that Datensky is a material that is meant to connect you with the gods directly, but because humans aren't meant to do that, it is a toxic ore. And so, we can look at the enchanted blades and their manifestations as literally connecting to divinity or bringing oneself to a higher realm. This is best shown by the true realm, or Honryo, of each blade. These blades break their limits and ascend to the realms of power beyond the theoretical upon their wielder's convictions ringing true to who they are. And this makes sense given the understanding that these blades are meant to raise one into a higher state of being. Through that, we can liken the tapping into one's true realm with the state of enlightenment. And we can also say that it seems possible that Cloud Gouger was talking to Chihiro in Chapter 31, which leads to the idea that each enchanted blade has its own spirit inside of it, and as such the idea that these blades connect you to a higher state and the manifestations of spirit energy make a little more sense with that understanding. Now that we're done going over the source material of the enchanted blades, I want to go over Enten. Enten's name in kanji has two characters. The first, En, carries the meaning of abyss or depths. It has the nuance of a mystery, a danger, something unreachable. The second, Ten, we already discussed when looking at Detensky, means heaven. The blade's name can then be translated into English to mean something along the lines of abyss of heaven. The name itself is a contradiction, as the first character is about the depths, but the second character is about the height of divinity and the sky. Enten's spirit energy manifestation is the three goldfish Chihiro raised with Kunishige in their childhood home, with each representing an ability based on what Kunishige was told the goldfish represent. The black goldfish is said to repel evil, and this Enten equivalent is the ability Kuro, which literally translates to black, which is an offensive ability used in the form of flying slashes. This ability's only application is to attack the enemies of the wielder, which is intended to be repelling evil. The kanji for Kuro is also associated in Buddhism with nirvana as the first character for it. The red goldfish is said to attract good fortune, and the Enten equivalent is the ability Aka, that again translates directly to the color red. This ability is an absorption and copy ability that Chihiro only uses when fighting for others. In Chapter 4, he uses it to protect Char. In Chapter 8, he uses it to prevent Sojo from attacking civilians. In Chapter 41, he uses it to protect the human merchandise in the Rakuzaichi alongside Hiyuki, and he's used it against Samura in order to keep up with him in battle and show his resolve through Aka Suzaku and Aka Crow. It's an ability solely used by Chihiro for the sake of others due to the bloody nature of the path he walks. That bloody path means he doesn't deem himself worthy of the blessing. The kanji for Aka don't have any deeper religious meaning and is primarily associated with a mythological figure known for its red face and love for sake. Finally, the last ability of Enten comes from the tricolored goldfish Nishiki. This is a reinforcement ability Chihiro uses to strengthen his movements as well as parts of himself, or to support his movements when weaker. This goldfish is said by Kunishige to be totally amazing. The meaning of the kanji is brocade or brocade. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it actually, which is a deep multicolored fabric, no doubt a reference to the multicolored fish. This symbolism of a luxurious fabric also finds its way into its manifestation as Nishiki covers Chihiro like a cloak, leaving behind a multicolored trail in its wake. The ability's title by Kunishige as totally amazing is a bit lacking, but given that Nishiki is an incredibly versatile move with so many applications, it makes sense. It's the backbone of Chihiro's kit, and it would be a lie to say that Chihiro has tapped into the full potential of this move. Chihiro will most definitely tap into more of Nishiki's potential as he evolves Enten, which he has begun to do with his seamless use of Nishiki from reinforcement to specific body parts against Samura. Let's tie each of these abilities thematically into the translated name of Abyss of Heaven. Kuro pretty clearly is the abyss, with its ties to blackness and the profoundness of the blackness it represents. Nishiki is grace, beauty, elevation of oneself. And you could interpret this a few ways, but if we're looking at this blade through a divine lens, I want to say that it means the heaven part of the Abyss of Heaven. And since Aka's nature is seizing and copying to represent a divine gift for the wielder, and its ties to fortune, I'm going to say that the only part of the name left for it is Abyss of Heaven, but it does lean more into heaven, like Nishiki does. So, Abyss, Kuro, Heaven, Nishiki, of Aka, but Aka is also more on the heaven end of things. Now, let's move on to Magatsumi, the strongest of the enchanted blades. The kanji for Magatsumi are Maga, which can mean curve or twisted, likely a representation for the curve that katanas have, and sumi, which means sin or crime. Combined, we get the name curved sin in English, which fits with the horrid actions committed by the wielder of this blade. Magatsumi's manifestations and theme are all about insects. It creates butterflies out of spiritual energy, as well as flowers that drain the life of anything they touch. The blade also manifests other insects as shown in the flashback. The three abilities seen in the Rakuzaichi's art conclusion, spider, dragonfly, and centipede, in Japanese are just the Japanese words for spider, dragonfly, and centipede. However, we can draw a spiritual connection to the Japanese god of chaos, Magatsuhi, for the identity of the spirit inside this blade potentially. Again, Magatsumi, we know what it's done, and Magatsuhi, god of chaos, makes sense. Finally, the main ability that Magatsumi is remembered the most for in Kagurabachi is the ability I was just alluding to, Malediction. The Viz translation of this ability doesn't do it justice in explaining the significance of this attack, so I'm going to use its Japanese name, Kodoku, from now on. Kodoku, in the kanji, is a singular character meaning roughly to poison someone. However, there is a deeper significance to this name in the form of old Japanese Kodoku rituals. The Kodoku ritual would be performed by mixing several insects into a sealed jar and letting them kill each other until only one remained. The fluids of that insect could be used to poison the victim with a powerful curse that could lead to misfortune or death. When taking into account the theme of the blade, alongside the functions of the main abilities, Spider immobilizes, Dragonfly decays, and Centipede unleashes an omnidirectional slashing attack, and Kodoku makes a little more sense. When Kodoku was used on the island, it was a combination of Magatsumi's abilities. The entire island was sealed and immobilized, its citizens forced into decay and death until the death toll had hit 200,000. The island was covered in centipede and butterfly spirit energy manifestations, as well as the flowers of Magatsumi. Unless new information comes out in future chapters, we do not know of any other abilities of Magatsumi or any other true realm developments of this blade that it went through. And as such, let's now look at how these blades parallel each other. As we have found in the revelations of Chapter 83, which this script's original draft predates, Enten and Magatsumi are two sides of the same coin. From a naming perspective alone, Enten already seems to represent a unique form of divinity. It's a contrast between the depths and the sky, whereas Magatsumi solely represents filth and sin. Magatsumi is a blade that has tasted untold amounts of innocent blood through Kodoku, and Enten is a blade that has only been used to weed out evil and protect the weak, only ends evildoers. Magatsumi was a blade meant to bring in an era of peace, and accomplished it in the bloodiest way possible. Enten is created as the final blade and the repentance of Kunishige to make up for his sins. It is a blade made by Chihiro and Kunishige to correct the original sin, the creation of the enchanted blades. This is an ability intentionally designed by Kunishige because Kunishige understands better than anyone that the enchanted blades should not exist. And this is where the beauty of Chapter 83 comes in. Shiba explains to Chihiro in a flashback that the truth of the Saté War and the tragic end brought by his father's creation. Shiba describes Kunishige as lost in the darkness, trying to find a way to destroy the blades. But his guiding light was his own son, because Kunishige's true masterpiece wasn't any katana, it was Chihiro. All that time, the one who pulled Kunishige out of the depths he was lost in, out of the abyss, and into heaven, was Chihiro. Within Chapter 83, Chihiro describes his role in forging Enten as what boils down to just being there and hitting the hammer when he told me to. To Chihiro, being there was nothing special, but his mere presence was a light. Enten is more than just representative of Kunishige's repentance. It's a part of Chihiro in as literal a sense as possible. A blade so focused on the contrasting of divinity with pure darkness is no coincidence given the dynamic of Chihiro and Kunishige and the fact that Chihiro has been a light for so many around him. Char, Hakuri, the Samura family. The same people he wields it for, the same people he uses Akka to protect. It's no coincidence either. When he declares that he will destroy the Shinuchi, it reads to me like an homage of one of the greatest moments in Shonen. Bleach chapter 552, The Blade is Me. In a series so focused on legacy, the sins of the father, and breaking free from that, there is nothing more fitting than a protagonist wielding a blade built for the exact purpose of wiping the Rokuhira family's legacy clean of the bloodshed left in the Sword Saint's wake. And this is where I think the story will go, with this in mind. We haven't seen everything the Enten has to offer. I don't think we've even scratched the surface of Enten's potential. The True Realm is an enigmatic force stated by Chihiro in Chapter 14 to be involving some unseen force. I believe this is where the idea of being true to yourself through powerful conviction and the idea spirits live within the blades comes into play. If one's True Realm can allow a sword to essentially decimate an island through combining every ability into an ultimate type attack, who is to say other enchanted blades can't do the same thing? Chihiro should be able to, no? And if we were to combine Akka, Nishiki, and Kuro, what would we get? All three goldfish together, potentially in the fishbowl from when the original goldfish were still alive. Using Nishiki, Chihiro could be moving so fast that it looks like he's dancing. And using Akka, which is an ability we have linked to gifts from above, we could say he's absorbing and reflecting attacks constantly. We could even say he has Kuro, or Kuro Shred, turned on the entire time for every swing of his sword. This hypothetical ability could be likened to a divine dance within Chihiro's childhood fishbowl. Now wait a second. Why does this sound familiar? So, if you've been looking at the screen, you see where this is going. If you have this on in the background, I'm talking about Kagurabachi. Not the series, the actual kanji and translation. The kanji for Kagurabachi translates to Divine Fishbowl Dance, which when taking into account the divinity theme across the Tensuki, the enchanted blades, and especially Enten, makes a lot of sense as an ultimate ability like Kadoku. I believe that Enten's True Realm's final ability will be this combination of all three in a fishbowl, similar to how Magatsumi's Kadoku is all three abilities combined into an insect jar ritual. But unlike the sinful, bloodthirsty, hateful use of Kadoku, Chihiro will use his ultimate ability, Kagurabachi, to destroy Magatsumi, to protect the weak, and to right the sins of his father. That's my prediction, at least. You guys, you can leave it in the comments how you think the story of Enten, Magatsumi, and the Rokuhira family will end, but at least that's what I think is the general direction that Enten is going to end up in. That's all I got, though. This is a video that took a lot of time to make. I initially made it before chapter 83, and I was honestly pretty scared because I went, wow, it just kind of threw a lot of what I was going to say out of the water. But I decided to tweak it and, get it out anyways. If you enjoyed, let me know in the comments. This is my first video essays type video. If you agreed, disagreed, please let me know what you in the comments. And feel free to subscribe if you like what you see. Follow me on Twitter for more consistent Kagurabachi stuff. And, with that said, I'm Bingle, aka Artispheria, and have yourselves a damn good one.